Welcome to Jim Rohn Treasures, where timeless lessons find their place in your modern journey. I want to begin today's conversation with something very simple, but I believe that if you truly understand it, your life will change direction. Not tomorrow, but starting tonight. You and I, and even the people you quietly admire out there, the successful ones, the disciplined ones, the ones rich in experience, we all have the same 24 hours. No one gets a single extra minute. So what makes some people break through while others keep struggling? I used to think the answer was luck, opportunity, or talent. But one day, sitting alone in a small rented room with empty hands and a blurry future, I realized it's not time that makes the difference, but how we live inside that time. Have you ever felt like your day slips by like a stream of cold water? You wake up with good intentions, but then emails, messages, urgent tasks, the noise of life pull you away like a strange wind. And by evening, you look back and don't understand what you actually did for yourself. I used to live like that, chasing the day instead of leading it, until I came across a sentence that changed my entire life. Don't start your day until you've finished it. And you know what? From that moment, I stopped seeing 24 hours as a clock and started seeing it as a piece of land. A piece of land where if you don't plant something, weeds will grow on their own. Today, I want to take a journey with you, not to move faster, but to live deeper. To help you understand, life doesn't change when you get busier. It changes when you get more intentional. I remember a period in my life back when I was working a low-paying sales job. Every morning I woke up believing, today I'll do better. But then the day passed just like yesterday, and the day before that, I was busy. So busy that I didn't have time to sit down and ask myself a simple question. Am I busy with what matters, or just busy out of habit? One afternoon, I met Earl Schaff, the man who changed the way I looked at my own life. During our conversation, he asked me, Jim, are you chasing the day or leading the day? I laughed it off, but inside that question hit me hard. I realized that for years, I hadn't truly been living. I had only been reacting to work, reacting to other people's demands, reacting to urgent things that weren't important, reacting to my own disappointment. I lived like a leaf blown by the wind, and even worse, I thought that was normal. Have you ever felt that way? A day worn down by little things, so much so that when the sun sets, you feel exhausted but haven't moved forward at all. Some call that lack of time. I call it lack of intention. You see, time never moves faster, but life can. And it moves the fastest when you're not paying attention. Schaff told me something I've never forgotten. If you don't decide what's important, life will decide for you, and it rarely chooses the best for you. I lived my whole youth in a passive state, waking up without knowing why, working without understanding why the work mattered, ending the day without knowing where I was heading. And then I realized nothing hurts more than losing yourself in small things. Nameless minutes scrolling your phone, meaningless conversations, urgent tasks that add no value, noises that pull you away from the life you want to build. Every day I felt busy, but deep down I knew I was lost. You know that feeling, don't you? The feeling that you deserve more, but the days keep passing without change. The feeling of a small voice inside saying, my life should be different. You just don't know where to start. That's the root of the problem. It's not that you lack time. You lack a way of living inside the time. And the moment you face that truth, your 24 hours will never look the same again. There was a moment in my life that I will never forget. One winter morning, before the sunlight could slip through the small window, I woke up with the feeling that I was late. Not late for work, but late for my own life. I sat up in my cramped room with the smell of stale coffee left from the night before and looked around. Everything was so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat, but inside, I knew I was living a loud, tangled, directionless life. Have you ever felt that? That feeling of waking up and thinking, it seems like my life has been running faster than I have. That morning, I remember standing in front of the mirror, looking at a man who looked 25 on the outside but felt much older on the inside. I saw tired eyes, a worry I couldn't hide, and more than anything, a truth I'd avoided for months. I wasn't living my dream. I was living society's inertia. All day long, I worked like a machine talking to customers, smiling politely, pretending everything was fine, but underneath, every passing minute made something clearer. I wasn't overwhelmed by work. I was overwhelmed by my own uncertainty. That afternoon, as the sun began to set, I sat on the wooden bench in front of the house, the place I always went whenever I needed to think. There was nothing special about it, just an old bench with peeling paint. But to me, it was a refuge, a place to be honest with myself. I looked at the red-orange sky and asked myself one single question. Jim, how did you let your life drift like this? And strangely, I couldn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I was afraid to say the truth out loud. I was afraid to admit that I had let my 24 hours be taken by. The noise, the distractions, the urgent but unimportant things, and the habits I thought were harmless but were slowly eating away at my future. But then something happened, something small, but it changed me. About a week later, I was invited to a small gathering where a man appeared, someone I would later call the greatest mentor of my life, Earl Schoaf. At the time, I thought he was just a successful businessman. But when he started speaking, the whole room fell silent. He didn't speak loudly, didn't preach, didn't show off success strategies. He spoke slowly, steadily, and from experience, as if he was sharing his own journey, not lecturing anyone. And then he said a sentence that I believe changed the trajectory of my life forever. You cannot have an extraordinary life with ordinary habits. That sentence cut through the fog in my mind like a beam of light. I sat up straight. I felt my heartbeat quicken. And I knew he was talking about me. I had lived for years with habits I considered small, waking up a little late, watching some meaningless news, letting others decide my schedule, reacting to life instead of leading it, living without knowing what truly mattered. All those small things added up and suddenly became an entire life off track. Schoaf looked at me and continued. Jim, you want to change your life? Don't start with the big things. Start with how you use your 24 hours. I sat there in silence, as if someone had finally said what I'd always known but never dared to face. Then he told me a story. I still remember vividly the story of the farmer and the land. He said, every man has a piece of land. Your 24 hours of that land, whether you plant seeds or not, weeds will grow. Whether you plant or not, time will pass. The only question is, what do you want to harvest from that land? I had never heard an image so true and so deep, because for years, I blamed life, blamed circumstances, blamed everything out there, without realizing the weeds in my life didn't grow because I was unlucky, but because I left the land empty. From that day on, I looked at time differently. I no longer asked, why don't I have enough time? I asked, why am I not using my time the right way? I no longer thought, this day went by so fast. I thought, what seeds did I plant today? I no longer complained, life is unfair. I understood, in 24 hours, life treats everyone equally. And then I realized something. You can change careers, change cities, change environments, but if you don't change how you live each day, you're just moving the same old life to a new place. You call it living, but really, it's just momentum. That day, on that old wooden bench, I made a promise to myself I would not let another day pass without belonging to me. Not to race against time, but to live according to the values I wanted to become. And you know what? From that moment on, my life began to shift, not through big things, but through very small but right changes. There is something I have to confess to you, something it took me many years to have the courage to face. It is this: we do not lose time. We lose ourselves in time. I once believed that all I needed was a better schedule, a neater planner, a few time management apps, and everything would fall into place. But then one evening, I sat alone in a silent living room, looking at the list of unfinished tasks, abandoned plans, the promises I had made to myself and not kept, and I knew. The problem wasn't the tools. The problem was the person holding the tools, me. Time never lies to you. Time only reflects you. Have you noticed? When you are confused, 24 hours always feel insufficient. When you are lost, 24 hours always feel heavy. But when you are intentional, even 1 hour can make a difference. I remember one moment very clearly. That day, I met a middle-aged man at a small seminar. He sat quietly in the back row, looking tired and sad. After the talk, he walked up to me and spoke in a small voice. Jim, I don't regret the time. I regret myself. I've lived so many years without knowing what I was living for. That sentence left me silent for a long time. Because it is the sentence so many people want to say, but don't dare. We are not defeated by time. We are defeated by vagueness, by days lived without knowing what they are for, by small things taking up all the space meant for what matters, by a life that is busy but not deep. I have been lost in that state. A state I call the inertia of adulthood, where you keep doing, keep trying, keep moving, but never really move forward. I discovered something important. What steals your time is not your phone, not other people, not responsibilities, but the lack of clarity within you. When you are not clear, you get pulled around. When you are not clear, you are easily distracted. When you are not clear, you are busy in ways that take you nowhere. And this led me to the most powerful insight of my journey. People do not live without time. People live without inner light. I call it guiding light, the kind of light that if you have it, no matter how much life pushes you around, you still know where you are going. And if you don't have it, 24 hours are nothing more than an endless cycle of things you don't really want to do. I learned this in a very ordinary way. One evening, after a long workday, I came home and saw a note I had written weeks before. I want to become a better version of myself. But the note was wrinkled, covered in dust, and I was still the old version, busy, tired, and worn out. I picked up the note, looked at the messy handwriting, and asked myself, if I really want to change, why am I not changing? The answer didn't come from cleverness, but from honesty, because I wasn't giving time to what I said was important. I was only giving time to what demanded my attention. And that helped me see a harsh but liberating truth. You can know the right thing for 10 years, but it only takes 24 right hours to change direction. Showoff once told me, Jim, life doesn't demand that you be perfect. It only demands that you be intentional. Intention is what most people lack. They have wishes, they have dreams, they have hopes, but they lack intention. Intention is what holds you in place when the world pulls you away. Intention is what helps you say no to the noise so you can hear your own voice again. Intention is what turns an ordinary 24 hours into 24 hours worth living. I started asking myself a new question every evening. Did my day reflect the person I want to become, or did it reflect whatever happened around me? And I was surprised to realize, on many days, I wasn't living according to my values. I was just living according to the flow of random events. I didn't lack time. I lacked a way of living that matched the essence I wanted to move toward. Do you know what happens when you understand this insight? You stop blaming. You stop chasing other people. You stop cramming too much into your day. And you start seeing what is truly worth keeping, worth nurturing, worth building. 24 hours stop being just a clock and become a sacred space where you no longer live out of obligation but live out of awareness. I say this to you not as someone perfect passing down wisdom, but as someone who was once lost and found his way. When you understand who you are and why you do what you do, 24 hours become as wide as a whole field. And you will see, time never decides your life. You decide your life through time. When I began changing the way I used my 24 hours, I did not have a perfect plan. I didn't know what to write in my notebook. I didn't know what time to wake up. I didn't know where to start. And most importantly, I wasn't sure I had enough discipline to keep it up. But then I remembered Shoff's words. Jim, changing your life isn't about changing everything. It's about changing one thing, but doing it every day. And that's when I realized I didn't need a revolution. I needed a return to myself, a return to what mattered most, a return to the essence I wanted to live by. That evening, I sat down, lit a small lamp, and wrote a simple question. Tomorrow, what is one thing, just one that if I do it, will bring me closer to the life I want to live? Not 10 things, not a long list that would scare me, just one. That one question alone changed how I felt inside, from confused to clear, from anxious to calm, from scattered to focused on one point. The next day, I woke up a little earlier, not because I wanted to, but because I was prepared. Like when you go to bed already knowing, this morning belongs to you, not to the chaos out there. I made a cup of hot coffee. The early light slipped through the window. I opened my notebook and wrote one line, just one line. Today, I will spend 30 minutes learning how to communicate better with customers. Not something big, not something grand, but it was the right thing. And I did it before letting life pull me away. The strange thing is, those 30 minutes gave me more than 30 minutes. They gave me a new feeling. the feeling that I had just placed a right brick into the foundation of my future. When you start your day with the right action, you change the rhythm of the whole day. When you start your day with intention, you become the one who leads. When you start your day with yourself, you no longer let the world decide your direction. Gradually, I discovered something. When you plant the right seed in the morning, life will change on its own by evening. And then you realize you don't need to force yourself to get better every day. You just need to plant one right seed, the seed of intention, the seed of clarity, and it will grow on its own. Once, I was walking in the late afternoon and saw a man tending bamboo in his yard. I asked him, "How long does it take for bamboo to emerge?" He smiled and said, "For many years you don't see anything at all." But that time isn't wasted. It doesn't grow up because it's growing down. I stood there for a moment. The wind gently brushed the tops of the bamboo. And I understood. On the days you're trying to rebuild your 24 hours, others might not see anything. You might not see anything big either. But inside you, roots are taking hold. Character is strengthening. Discipline is forming in your very bones. All real change starts quietly. You don't know exactly when it arrives, but you know it is happening. And then, life will give you special days. Days when you don't have to try so hard. Days when everything seems to flow together. Days when you look back and realize, this is the result of all those 24-hour periods I lived with intention. Another time, I was having coffee with Shof, and he said this, "Jim, you can't control the future, but you can control a day. And if you do that long enough, the future will have to obey you." I looked at him and laughed. "Just one day?" He nodded. "Just one day. But do it well." I've carried that sentence with me my whole life, and I started applying it in a very ordinary way. In the morning, I chose myself before the world chose me. At noon, I paused for a few minutes, breathed, and asked myself, am I still on the right track? In the afternoon, I set aside a short time for something that moved me forward, no matter how big or small. In the evening, I looked back and took one lesson for tomorrow. Not because I wanted to become strong, but because I wanted to become clear. You see, change isn't about living faster. Change is about living truer. You don't need to turn your life into a race. You just need to turn your 24 hours into a meaningful moment. And when you can do that, you will no longer ask, how do I become successful? You will ask, am I living a day that is worthy of myself? Because the answer to that question is the key that unlocks the rest of your life. There is one thing I see more clearly as I grow older. Time is not just something that passes. Time is something that reflects the person you are becoming. When I was young, I thought using time well meant getting more done. But then I discovered that is only a very shallow layer of life. People don't burn out because they do too much. People burn out because they live against their values for too long. Time doesn't make you tired. Misalignment makes you tired. There are days when I do little, yet I feel peaceful, clear, and light. And there are also days when I do only a few small things. But inside me, there is a storm. Confusion, feeling lost, lacking meaning. That's when I realized a philosophy Shoaf had hinted at long ago. Jim, you can't live a good life if you don't know what you want to live for. 24 hours didn't teach me how to be busy. They taught me how to be honest. And the first honesty an adult needs to face is this. You don't actually lack time. You lack loyalty to what matters most to you. Do you know why the 24 hours of so many people slip by like sand through open hands? Because they know very clearly what they hate, but they don't know what they truly want. They know they don't want to be poor, don't want to be exhausted, don't want to be dragged around. But when you ask them, so what do you want? They fall silent. A life without an answer will drift in the direction of others. And the sad thing is, when you don't know where you want to go, you'll be swept onto the most crowded road, the road of people who also don't know where they're going. I lived many years like that. In the morning, I woke up chasing the demands of the world. At noon, I met the expectations of others. In the evening, I found myself living a day that didn't belong to me. Then at one point, I asked myself a question that was extremely simple, but also extremely hard to answer. Jim, what is worth giving my whole life to? I didn't ask, what makes the most money? Nor did I ask, what makes me look more successful? I asked, what is worthy of me offering it every day, every hour of my life? And that question became my compass for decades after. Because once you know what is worthy of your time, you immediately know what is not. Your 24 hours begin to be purified. You don't have to try hard to say no to many things. You just need to know what you are saying yes to. The things that don't belong to you fade away on their own. The people who aren't going in the same direction drift away on their own. The noise naturally quiets down. You no longer fight against life. You begin to cooperate with it. I remember once walking in the forest with Shoaf. We passed a towering old tree several stories high. He stopped, looked up at the wide canopy and said, "See that, Jim? This tree didn't grow because it tried to grow every day. It grew because it stayed loyal to its direction. Its direction is toward the sky. It doesn't grow sideways like a clump of grass. It doesn't crawl along the ground like a vine. It stands tall. It is honest. It is consistent." I stood under that tree and understood. People are the same. When you live in the right direction, 24 hours is enough. When you live in the wrong direction, no 24 hours is ever enough. That is why some people need only a few years to break through, while others spend a lifetime standing still. Not because one is more talented, not because the other is lazier, but because some live with direction, others live by drift. And the most painful thing is not lacking time. The most painful thing is realizing you have lived a long time in a direction that isn't yours. I once watched a 50-year-old man stand up at a talk and say, "Jim, I've spent my whole life climbing the wrong ladder." The whole room went silent. I looked at him and saw tears in his eyes, and I understood. Nothing hurts more than realizing you have traded decades for a life that never belonged to you. That's why I say 24 hours is sacred ground. What you plant in it, you will harvest in your life. Don't plant noise. Don't plant pressures you don't want to carry. Don't plant goals that society tells you to chase. Plant the things that make your back straighten, your heart brighten, your breath feel light. Plant clarity. Plant honesty. Plant awareness. Because when you plant the right seeds, you don't need to beg life to change. Life will change on its own to match you. Shoaf once told me a sentence I want to pass on to you today. Time doesn't come to test you. It comes to serve you, if you know how to ask it to do the right thing. And when you understand this philosophy, you will no longer see 24 hours as a ticking clock, but as a quiet companion, one who will lead you to the best version of yourself, one day at a time. On some evenings, when all the sounds outside begin to fade, I often sit alone staring into the darkness in front of me and think about the years I've lived, not thinking about success or failure, just thinking about the days. Simply the days. Beautiful days, tiring days, warm days, days I want to forget, days I regret not having lived fully. And every time I look back, I don't see a long life. I only see pieces of 24 hours put together. Everything I have become, everything I have done did not come from one lucky week or one breakout year. It came from the very days when I chose to live with intention. The days when I decided not to let life blow me around like a thin leaf. The days when I placed my own feet on the path I chose. I want you to understand this. No one changes their life in a single moment. People change their lives by changing their days. I have met many people in my life, people 10 times more talented than I am, people with circumstances 100 times better than mine, but they still got lost in their own lives, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked direction in their days. And there are also those who are quiet, reserved, not loud at all, but each day they plant one right seed, reading just one right page, giving just 10 minutes to themselves, sitting still for 3 minutes to think, saying no to one unnecessary thing. Those people are often the ones who bloom last. But when they bloom beautifully, and they bloom for a long time. Why? Because they live each day as if they're laying a brick for their future. Not impatient, not rushed, not trying to impress. They simply live with intention, every day the same. Little by little, but right. I want to ask you this, and I want you to answer in your heart very slowly. Did your day today reflect the person you want to become? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be excellent. It just needs to be in the right direction. If the answer is not yet, then don't blame yourself. Most of us are just learning how to live, one step at a time. But let me say this to you as a friend, not as a teacher. You deserve to have days that belong to you. Days when you wake up and know what you will do, not because the world demands it, but because your heart wants it. Days when you feel you are moving forward, even if only a millimeter. Days when, at the end of the night, you can look in the mirror and say, "Today I lived in my own direction." You deserve days like that. And you can start them not next year, not next month, not when life is more stable, but starting tomorrow. Or starting tonight, when you write one question on a blank page, tomorrow, what is the truest thing for me? If you just answer that question every day, your life will change in ways you could never have imagined. You know, I don't care how much time you've wasted in the past. All of us have had periods like that. I have too. What matters is not how many days you have lost, but how many days you choose from this moment on. Time is very fair. It doesn't care whether you're rich or poor, talented or not yet talented, whether you started early or late. Time only quietly asks you one question. Who do you want to become? And every morning, every evening, every quiet moment, you have one chance to answer. Before we end this conversation, I want you to take a second to feel this deeply. Your life can change, but for it to change, you must change how you live your days. If these words resonate with you, if there was a passage that made you pause to think, to remember, to look back at yourself, I want you to leave a keyens in the comments. Not because I need validation, but because I want to know you're still walking with me on this journey. And if you want to keep receiving lessons like this real, grounded, deep, and full of experience, you can continue to follow this journey with me. Before you leave the video, remember one thing I've believed my whole life. Success is not something you pursue. It is something you attract by the person you become. And you become that person one day at a time. Each 24 hours, a sacred piece of land on which you choose to plant what is right. We will see each other again very soon. On a new day, in a new journey, with a better version of yourself,